So, my name is Michael. I am talking on behalf of the SEAS program. I am going to give you a quick history of the program just so you can get an idea of where it's going to go in the future and what I'm ultimately working for. As said, we do predict sargassum for the Texas coast. That's where we started, and it's kind of branched out to Mexico, the Caribbean, Florida, many other countries. In fact, I'm getting complaints because I'm here not making forecasts. So, this is Robert Webster. He founded the program back in 2012. He was the first one to put the whole system together and kind of get the idea of where the sargassum comes from, how it gets into the Gulf, and the forces at play that control and create the patterns we see today. He was a boat captain, so using the idea of boat captain set and drift, he came up with the perfect way, in his mind, to decide where the sargassum would land. And in fact, the very first forecast he ever put out, he got laughed at because nobody believed him. And then 12 hours later, right on the dot, he got a phone call and the guy apologized. So, this was the original forecast. It was fairly simple. You kind of had to know what you're looking at. If you are from Houston, you may not know that's Galveston, you know. So, over the years, it's changed a little bit, but these were the original locations. Of course, you know, Texas being the prime real estate because that's where we live. We looked at the Yucatan because he figured out that that's where it's coming from, and if you could catch it in the act, you knew it was coming. And Florida was the exit for the system, so if you saw it leaving, then you didn't have to worry about it so much. Then he also kept an eye on the Mona, the Windward, and the Anegada passages over to the east, because it was believed at the time that the sargassum was coming in through that from the Bahamas. Then 2014 hit, and we got real popular really fast for all the wrong reasons. As you know, it was pretty heavy. It was a unique circumstance that we hadn't seen in a while that caused the massive amounts of sargassum to appear on the beaches. But we knew it was coming, so of course we became the experts immediately. And good times by all. We got funding from NASA for a while. You know, one of the biggest, well-known research programs for A&M Galveston. You know, it's a pretty small college. And the very next year he died. So the good times kind of ended. And the team graduated. Some of them were engineer students, so they kind of went to their engineering department because they weren't seaweed people to begin with. So it was kind of like the boat lost the captain, you know. It was just me and another guy. He didn't want to do the forecast. He was kind of the PR guy, was the back of the house guy. And it was a little tough, you know. No one quite knew what to do. But it kind of, you know, I just kept doing it. A friend of mine, he's the beach manager up in Galveston. He's always like, "Mr. Mike, I really appreciate what you're doing." And I'm like, "I'll keep doing it then." And then the school took away the hardware, the software, and the rooms that I was working from. So it's like, okay, I guess I quit. You know, there's nothing going on. I'm sorry, I can't do it no more. I got a call like an hour after I quit from John. He's the head of the IT department. He's like, "I understand you're the seaweed guy." And it's like, "Oh, I guess so. I mean, the other seaweed guy isn't here." And he's like, "I want you to come work for me." And it's like, "Okay, what's the catch?" He's like, "I can get you your computer back and get you back your programs you made." I said, "Can I have my office back?" He's like, "No." So I said, "Okay, let's do this." And after talking with him for a bit, because I'd always, it's Robert's program, I'm just kind of filling in until the next Robert comes around, because I'm just an undergrad. You know, most people want like a PhD or a master's student when they talk to people. And John's like, well, I've never met Robert. I only know that you do it. And so after talking with my friend, Jesse, he's the beach manager, and Ruben, who I work for and work with, they kind of helped me realize that it's Robert's program, but it's also kind of become my program because I've been doing it since he died. I've been doing forecasts since 2014. So, as you know, these were our current locations back in 2014. I get emails every once in a while from people all over the Caribbean going, can you add me? I need to know. This is what I do now. It grew. And the manpower didn't grow, but the programming grew. So it's like, okay, more efficient, more programs, more. This was the 2014 and 15 version. You can see it's grown a little bit from the original forecast, which was just a zoomed in picture. I thought it was kind of interesting, you know, obviously the maroon was for the agginess, and the green was because Robert. So one of the first things I did is I changed it to be a little more monotoned and to try to get a better image, more zoomed in, but still an idea of what you're looking at. One of the biggest problems we always had is what do you say to the people other than it's a coming? So I wrote some programs, and the forecast stuff started to become more normalized. I could tell you how fast it's going, how far it should go in 1 to 2 days, and that kind of stuff. Then I discovered Sentinel, and I discovered Sentinel this year. So I have been working like a madman, trying to get Sentinel to work. I realized that with a 5-day layover for Sentinel and an 8-day layover for Landsat, we could maybe have an image like once a week, maybe even twice a week, depending on circumstances. And the resolution for Landsat is 30 meters. The resolution for Sentinel is 10, and they're both free. So of course that made me really happy. So after 2014, there was a committee formed. I got put on an email list, and usually it's in French because there's a lot of French scientists out in the Caribbean. They own some islands out there. And so every once in a while, I just get emailed, it's in French. I just kind of scroll through it and go, yep, it's in French. Every once in a while, it's in English. And I was just kind of snooping through, and they mentioned bands 8, 11, and 4. I said, okay, what's that? You know, I always looked at RGB because it's big, it's green, it's flowing in the middle, it's easy to spot. Well, as you can see, bands 8, 4, and 11 are infrared. And that's the trick to it. The RGB band is a Sentinel image. They're both the same resolution, but as you can see in the infrared images, all the noise and colors of the ocean are gone because the ocean absorbs a much more high amount of the infrared spectrum, so it just appears black. And the sargassum glows because it reflects the infrared. So I'm like, awesome. So for like the last 3 months, because I knew this was coming up, I'm like, I've got to have something to show other than we've got this idea. Because we all like to see something working and that kind of stuff. Texas hasn't been getting sargassum. So I started checking the Yucatan. And of course it never quite lined up for whatever reason. So as I've been saying, hopefully with the two of them, we can start getting a better understanding of the sargassum system. But it's like, why it's not there? We're already making this thing bigger and badder than anything that anybody else has dreamed of. And I'll get into that, how I'm working. I've worked with Jesse, and I figured he's the client, you know. Yeah, civilians that aren't scientists will use it occasionally, but most of the people that will be using the system are beach managers, coastal people. So it's like, well, let's talk to these people. What do they want, you know? Let's get the client's perspective. So I made a prototype. Now, this is early alpha. I got it working Friday. So it's a proof of concept. So I know there's no legend on it. I know there's issues. But just see what it can be after I get some like time pumped into it. So one of the first things that I wanted to change was the old Sargassum forecasts were very blocked. You got that one image, you got two images, so it's kind of hard to see like the grand scale of things. I kind of like to think about it as like the 1800s house versus the modern day house, where it's an open concept. So, I give it a second. It takes a second to load because of the Sentinel images are a lot larger and I need to figure out a way to compress them. Basically, you can pick an area that you want to look at and it will overlay the closest 4 images. So Corpus will have 4 images, South Padre will have 4 images, and I compress them as little as possible. So you can also zoom in as far as you want to. Now, my mouse. There are some issues with it. As you can see, big black band. Hey Mike, what's that? Well, as Sentinel goes over, it takes photos, and that's just outside its camera. And then you go, hey Mike, what's with the white? It's broken too. Well, it's clouds. You wouldn't know it, but the reason I know it is because I zoomed in one day, because I look at it like every day trying to get stuff to work. The RGB bands for Sentinel are super bright, so for some reason they reflect super white. And like I said, there's issues, but it's a proof of concept. Oh, it went crazy. So the very next thing Jesse said he would like is set and drift for the entire Gulf. I said, okay, Jesse, you're making it a little hard, but let's do this. So I looked at a way to kind of get an idea of what the whole Gulf is looking like. And the arrows kind of tell you an idea of what's going on, but that's not good enough because I don't know speed. So you can click on one, and it will tell you the combined direction of the wind and the current, for the speed and the direction. Now the colors are broken up into just simple categories, where red is anything like past 1 knot, green is anything below 0.5 knots, yellow is anything between 0.5 and 0.7, and then orange is between 0.7 and 0.9. Now there'll be a scale at some point, there'll be more information, but the way Sargassum for us works is it comes in right here at the Yucatan, and there is the Gulf Stream there, as we all know. And the Gulf Stream does whatever the Gulf Stream wants to do. But it creates a Y, and it can either come up, around, and to us, or it can kind of go back out to Florida. And so what I'm hoping to do with this is create a statistics model at some point. Because now we have the directions of where it's going. We can just save it as a JSON file and call it in the future. And a friend of mine said, why don't you take ocean temp too? I said, sure, why not? You know, let's just take all the information we can to get more data, more better. So, it does reset. Like I said, it's new. It's still being built. But the idea of getting away from just using RGB bands or infrared bands, because there's a temporal limit, and unless we get something that's like every day, people always want to know, like, what's today? Tell me in 3 days what's going to be landing in the Yucatan. Tell me in 6 months what's going to be landing in Cozumel. I've got a cruise. And I really hate saying, I don't know, I don't do 6 months. There's too many variables. So, with this new system, I hopefully want to also tie Landsat into it. So both images can look something like this, so we can keep an idea of a global scale. Because it's not just a local phenomenon that happens just to Texas. It happens all across the Gulf. It also happens in Africa and in South America. So keeping that in mind, eventually, where are you? There you go. I'd like to expand it out so we can keep getting more information and continue making better models to provide beach managers with this. And with knowing the direction of the currents and stuff, we can predict, like, if something, not even sargassum, but like if there's big mounds of trash and all the directions point to us, we know something might be coming. What's the probability of something happening? Now, if it's all going to Florida, you know, then Florida has to deal with it. But every month I give a quick speech about what's going on in the system to kind of keep Galveston in tuned. But I look at the whole system. They look at Galveston. We don't see any in Texas. Mexico sees it. Mexico has been seeing it for 2 years now. Yeah, but that's why I say it's something, we don't think about it until it happens. And so having these systems in place to be prepared is extremely important, because we don't want to be caught off guard. And that's my opinion on the whole thing. Questions?
You say it doesn't come to Texas. Where were you a couple of years ago when it was waist deep?
Oh, in 2014?
Was it 14 or 15?
14.
Anyway, it would seem to me that coastal people are more concerned with what to do with it when it gets there than the fact that it's coming.
Yeah.
And are you guys going to expand to that level?
We could, I mean, the best I could do is give them Jesse's protocol, because I don't tell people what to do with it. I let them know in advance to prepare, and I hope that they have systems involved to deal with it, because every place is different. Like down in Mexico, they don't run machines, they run guys with pitchforks. And they have rules where they can't actually take it off the beach. Where in Texas, you can't take it off the beach, you have to leave it in a certain percent area.
Oh boy, but they take it off at Port Aransas. They cut holes in the dunes and throw it in the dunes.
Yeah, but the dunes are still part of the beach system, part of the beach area. But like Florida, the Keys, they actually will put it in dump trucks and drive it to another city.
So the best place, the best way to do it is like the National Seashore. Nothing.
Yeah, in Galveston, they've actually just started making beer out of it.
I love it.
Yeah. Any others?
Are your only users beach managers, or do you have other users
I've
who
got-
care about it for other purposes?
I'm basically trying to build it for beach users, but I'm also trying to make it so anybody can understand it. I'm trying to make it as diverse and useful for as many people as I can understand it. I get people that are going on cruises asking me about it because they use it. I got a man, he proposed to his girlfriend, and she wanted to know if Sargassum is going to show up in the Yucatan in December because that's when she wants to get married. So lots of people use it, but the extra data is for it's for anybody. I'm not going to say just beach managers, but he's the guy I've been talking to because, you know, he's the one always on my shoulder being like, I like what you're doing. So, yeah, it's for anybody. I mean, and if anybody wants to, I can also, you know, throw in the prototype link because it'll change over time. And if somebody wants to see something, I have no problems with adding it in. It's like, you know, adding the temperature in or salinity Because like I said, I don't quite know what all of the factors are other than wind and current. There could be temperature plays some kind of role in it, salinity changes something. So there's not much of an issue with me with adding more stuff or making something look a certain way so more people than the civilian field will be able to use it.